going to learn about what I think actually is one of the most successful and effective programs at the MPCA. It's the Volunteer Water Monitoring Program, and for over 50 years, this really amazingly successful program has been engaging citizens across the state on water quality issues and environmental protection. Volunteer collected data is used in Minnesota's formal water quality assessment process, and really it's a testament to the value that the MPCA places on the volunteers' ability to accurately collect water data out there. Waverly Reibel and Shannon Martin are the co-coordinators of this program. They support over 1,000 volunteers in monitoring water clarity on lakes and streams across Minnesota and helping them in their quest to learn about and positively impact their local waterways. A little bit about our speakers. Waverly has been with the MPCA Volunteer Water Monitoring Program since 2021. So she's relatively new to the agency, and it's great to have you with us, Waverly. She enjoys working with the program's passionate volunteers, and before coming to the MPCA, she worked in water advocacy, community engagement, and environmental education. Shannon spent nearly 7 years at the Nature Conservancy on environmental outreach and education activities in Canada. That is certainly interesting, Shannon. I would like to hear more about that. She has also volunteered as an English as a second language instructor, served on the board of her local Audubon chapter, and cared for injured wildlife at the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center. So it's probably no surprise that Shannon describes herself as a person who enjoys volunteering just as much as the volunteer monitors she helps coordinate. Waverly, I'm going to turn it over to you. Take it
Great.
away.
All right, awesome. So, hi everyone, I'm Waverly. Thank you, Mark, for that introduction for Shannon and I. So, we coordinate the Volunteer Water Monitoring Program here at the PCA. And so, today I'll be talking about the program, our volunteers, what they do, why they do it, and how important their data is to us here at the PCA. And so, you all probably know that we have staff here at the PCA who monitor water bodies, but we also have a really, really robust citizen science program here at the MPCA. So today we have over 1,100 volunteers and they monitor over 1,200 sites statewide. And this year is actually our 50th year of the program, which is amazing. So I have some stats here. So since 1973, we've had volunteers monitor 4,582 lakes, 2,571 stream sites, and nearly 10,000 people have participated in the program since 1973, which is just awesome. And we do have some volunteers that are still active in the program who have been monitoring over 40 years with us. So it's really great that we're getting this long-term data from our volunteers. And so here at the PCA, we do have a few different citizen science volunteer opportunities. So we have the lake monitoring program, the stream monitoring program, our lake ice reporter program, and we also have a boundary waters monitoring program. So our lake and stream clarity monitoring program is kind of like the hallmark program of us. And so our volunteers do basic water clarity monitoring at least twice per month using a Secchi disc for lakes and a Secchi tube for streams. And our lake season runs May to September, and our stream season runs April to September. And so other than just doing transparency readings, they also take some observational parameters such as rating algae and sediment levels, recording water level, water color. And these volunteers, they return to the same site year after year. So this ensures consistency in data gathering. And so boundary water lake monitoring, I hope, is of a lot of interest to you all. So instead of returning to the same site year after year, our boundary waters volunteers, they're more one-off monitoring opportunities. for canoe trips into the BWCA. So anyone can monitor if you're paddling through some lakes up there. So again, it's just basic water clarity monitoring using a Secchi disc. So if you're interested in doing this, if you have a Boundary Waters trip coming up this summer or fall, please send us an email. We'll send you a kit. It's pretty lightweight to fit in with your gear. Includes a Secchi disc, the Write in the Rain paper data sheets. As you know, it can get pretty wet out there on canoes. And so yeah, it's a really fun program. If you do have a trip coming up, please let us know. We're always looking for more Boundary Waters Secchi data. And we also have lake ice reporting program, which is becoming increasingly more important since we have such a big focus on climate change here at the PCA. So we receive annual ice on, ice off dates from volunteers, and we share that data with the state climatology office. And we also get historical ice dates too. Sometimes people have lived on a lake for a long time, so they have old dates. Lake associations sometimes compile old dates as well. And so if you Google state climatology ice out map, it should come up and you'll be able to see spring 2023 ice out dates all across the state. And most of those are from our volunteers. But really cool map, highly recommend checking it out. And so, as a lot of you know, we actually went through a program rebranding last year. So we had the Citizen Lake Monitoring Program and the Citizen Stream Monitoring Program. And so we combined these two kind of separate programs into the Volunteer Water Monitoring Program. So we wanted to stop using the word citizen as much to be more inclusive and not have any barriers to Minnesotans joining the program. We wanted anyone to be able to join regardless of whether you're a citizen or not. So who can monitor? And that is literally anyone can become a volunteer if you live near or frequently visit a lake or stream. And so we have families, retirees, schools, community groups, anyone can volunteer. We provide the training. We have online training now. We provide the equipment, all for free. So we really want to eliminate any barriers to joining this volunteer program. And for example, another example of someone who participates is the National Loon Center up in Cross Lake, Minnesota. They actually incorporated our water clarity monitoring program into their education programming up there. They have a stewardship is what they call it, and it's a boat they take education groups out on to learn about water quality and loons. And they take water clarity readings and send those to us. So that's a really cool partnership that we have going on. And so 2022, we had 1,104 lake and stream monitors, 717 lakes monitored, 530 stream sites monitored. And so you might wonder why people sign up to participate in the program. So it's mainly because people are concerned or curious or both about their favorite lake or stream. That's one of the main reasons they sign up. A lot of times a particular lake or stream has played a really important part in their life growing up, or their family visited it growing up. They want to take their kids there one day. So they want to better understand that body of water and also protect it. And then another reason would be maybe people collected data or used a science-based process in their professional career or at school, and now they just want to get back into that. And so volunteers are local water advocates. So they have this invaluable place-based historical knowledge of this water body. They can also be invested emotionally and financially if they live on or near a water body. And then again, they can feel that impact of degraded water quality on their community firsthand if they are visiting that place often or live right by it. And so volunteers are super important data collectors. So they are the MPCA's kind of boots on the ground. They track water quality regularly, year to year across Minnesota. And so their data is used directly in MPCA water quality assessments. And so their data is not just being collected and then sitting in a database somewhere, never to be seen again. It's actually being used. Um, and also, they extend the MPCA's capacity far more than what staff can accomplish. Um, so, with over 12,000 lakes and thousands and thousands and thousands of miles of streams in the state, MPCA staff can't make it out to all those water bodies every year. Um, but our volunteers are there year after year, every year, collecting this data. So they prevent data gaps, and they also just contribute to the longevity and consistency of local data collection. Okay, so that's a lot about our awesome volunteers that participate in the programs. And so I'll talk more about the data that they collect and how it helps us better understand and protect and restore lakes and streams here in Minnesota. So our volunteers, they mainly collect water clarity data, lake monitors using a Secchi disc, and you can see a Secchi disc here in these images. And so water clarity is a really simple, easy, quick test to do, but it's really important. It provides a lot of helpful information. It's kind of like the blood pressure of a water body. So for lakes, a simple water clarity test can provide estimate of algae levels, response to seasonal changes in temperature and precipitation, response to surrounding land use changes, and also response to one-time events such as severe weather and construction. And so for streams, it's very similar, very simple test. There's a Secchi tube example picture on the left of the screen. That's what our stream monitors use. And so the water clarity test can tell us how much light is penetrating into the water body. And so that can indicate what kind of plant life is at the in the stream, or the composition of the stream bottom, and also if sediment could be limiting the ability for plants and insects to thrive. So what causes low water clarity? For lakes, mainly algae growth due to high nutrients. And that would be fertilizer runoff, wastewater treatment plants, etc. Sometimes sediment can cause low water clarity in lakes, but it's mostly algae growth. And then streams, mostly excess sediment from stream banks and runoff causes low water clarity. And so volunteer collected data directly informs watershed management and helps us at the MPCA answer two important questions. Is lake or stream water clarity changing over time? And is a lake or stream meeting state water quality standards? And so we'll start off by talking about trends. And so understanding if and how a lake or stream changes over time is critically important to protecting or restoring it. And so for our program, we need 8 years of data and 50 points of data to be able to run a trend analysis. However, MPCA staff only monitor lakes and streams in a watershed every 10 years, which doesn't provide enough data for us to run a water clarity trend. For example, on the left here is Hall Lake in Martin County. Data was first collected by MPCA staff in 1988, that star there that you see. And then they came back in 2001 and 2002, 13 years later. And then they returned again 2017, 2018. A very few points of data were collected in the interim years by volunteers, but it was not enough to determine a trend for Hall Lake. If a volunteer had been collecting water clarity readings year after year on this lake over those 30 years, a trend, if one was present, would have been detectable. And then, yeah, exactly, our trends require lots and lots of data. So we were able to detect an improving trend on Crooked Lake in Anoka County. A large amount of data had been collected by volunteers over a 43-year period. So all of this means that volunteer collected data is really, really essential for amassing the large amount of data that's needed to detect trends over time. And those trends are a really important barometer of lake and stream health to the MPCA. So by highlighting how important the volunteer collected data is, it helps answer questions that a lot of participants in the program and also participants in other citizen science type programs have, which is, am I actually making a difference? Is my data being used? Is it just sitting there? What if I can only monitor for a couple of years and then have to retire? What happens to data that was actually collected 30 years ago? Basically, where do I fit in? Am I helping to achieve anything? And the answer is absolutely yes. So what's great about long-term data gathering, like this program, is that all data is used and it's all useful. Old data is just as important as new data. Both are needed to be able to understand how conditions change over time. And so same person doesn't have to monitor a lake for 25 years to make a difference. What's important? Someone's doing it. And for example, here's Lake Minnewawa in Aitkin County. So the first volunteers started in 1979, monitored for 9 years till 1987. New volunteer took over in 1989, monitored for 17 years, and then retired in 2005. Third volunteer took over 2006, monitored for about 10 years until 2015. Fourth volunteer started 2016, only monitored for 2 years, but it's fine because for those 2 years, we didn't have a data gap. We actually had data, even if they only did it for 2 years. And then a new person signed up to monitor in 2018 and is continuing to add to this history of data collection. So these 5 people dedicated their time over a 39-year period. And so they collected the data that was needed to determine that Lake Minnewawa has an improving water clarity trend, even though these people may have never met each other. And so this was a huge collaborative data collection that these people may not have known each other, but it was still collaborative, which is really awesome. And so we also create lake clarity trend maps and stream clarity trend maps. So these are both from 2021. We're still working on our 2022 maps. And I will say, if you want to just go to our website on the MPCA site, it's Get Engaged, Volunteer Water Monitoring. And on the left, you'll see Volunteer Monitoring Reports and Data. Scroll down to the bottom and you'll be able to actually click out to these ArcGIS maps, and you can zoom in and actually interact with the map and see it a lot more clear. If there's a favorite lake or stream you have, you can go check it out. And so these are really cool. We do these, and we also have average water clarity maps for summer as well, for lake and stream. And so you can find those online on our site. And we also do individual monitoring reports for our volunteers for their sites. And you can check those out too if you'd like. And so in addition to informing our water clarity trends in lakes and streams across the state, our volunteer collected data also helps the state conduct water quality assessments that are mandated by the Clean Water Act. And so staff monitoring data and volunteer monitoring data are both used in these water quality assessments, which is really, really awesome. So 43% of lake assessments use volunteer data and 12% of stream TSS assessments use volunteer data. So that's a really awesome amount of volunteer data that was actually being used in these assessments. And so other than just knowing that their data is useful to us at the MPCA, volunteers stick around because they want to preserve a deep connection with a particular lake or stream, and they want to share that passion and connection and pass it on to future generations. And so that's super, super important to our volunteers, why they stick around. Other reasons may be we work really hard as a program to show our appreciation to our volunteers because we do appreciate them so much in everything that they do. And so we do an annual SECI social events for our volunteers. We have off-season expert webinars. We provide newsletters each year. We've built a community Facebook group for our volunteers. We provide annual awards. So we really do what we can to show our appreciation to them. And so here's just the last takeaways of the program and why our volunteers matter here at the PCA. So they're local water advocates, important data collectors. That's really critical. The data is really critical in detecting trends in water clarity over time. And then we also use their data in water quality assessments as well. And so here is our contact information, especially if you want to email us about boundary waters, if you'd like to go out this year. And there's our website where you can find those reports and maps. And then there's our Facebook group for our volunteers as well. It's open, anyone can join, even if you're not a volunteer. It's really cool. Volunteers will post in it. I would recommend checking out the Facebook group. It's really cool. Yeah, thanks so much. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Great, thanks for the thanks for the presentation on volunteer water monitoring, whether that's really interesting to see how many people are so engaged with this. If anyone has questions, put them in the chat, and we'll definitely shout them out to Waverly or Shannon here, who is with us too. I do have a question to get us going on it. Do you also take data from Lake Superior, or is it just inland lakes?
Shannon, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I can take that. As long as I've been here, we've had like one volunteer on Lake Superior. They were a family that had like a sailing, like they took like students and other people out on tours. And they lived on the boat too, I think, for like certain parts of the year. So they participated for a good number of years. But that's it. So we don't really get a lot of people that offer to take. I think it can be a little bit tough. It's a big lake, and the waves might get tough in certain places to get a good reading. But yeah, we don't have a lot of people. We'll take it. People want to collect it on Lake Superior for sure.
Yeah, and it's also a huge area. And I was just kind of curious because it's not just it's not a Minnesota water body. So I was kind of curious to see if it extended into Lake Superior.
That was one of the issues that we ended up having with that family, because they moved around a lot on the lake, and a lot of the monitoring actually ended up being outside of like the state boundaries of Lake Superior. So I was setting up monitoring sites in like Wisconsin and Michigan, and so I'm like, I don't know. And then it became like a data storage issue. But
yeah,
I didn't really tell them that. I just did what I could. But
so Shannon,
but to say that that we also have a lot of people that monitor a ton of streams that flow into Lake Superior up on the North Shore. That's a pretty popular area.
Right. So Shannon did put something in the chat. New maps will be out first week of June, so that'll be good to check into. And she also put the link in for those who are interested in seeing those maps, and copy that off, or yeah, copy and paste it into something else, because I think we lose that link as soon as we're done with the show today. I don't think we can. That doesn't come back in the recording, I don't think. Brooke, does it? Not sure.
No, it won't show up on the recorded version. I mean, we technically have a transcript, I think, that we save, but I don't think it's in there either. It's just the transcript is just their,
Right.
typing
Corey
of what we're
says,
saying, which is not very accurate.
Corey says, "What a great program." Now, what's the typical monitoring frequency for volunteers on a particular water body?
It really depends on the volunteer. We ask for at least twice per month, but some people go out twice a week. It really just depends on the volunteer.
Oh, so it's not
minimum
set.
twice a
You
month.
can monitor every half an hour if you wanted to. Okay.
Yeah, you really can. And we get a
Okay.
wide variety. Some people will send like one reading in for the entire summer, and you're like, oh, okay. And then somebody will send in like pages and pages worth. So.
Yeah. Fox Shar says, asks, do we share the volunteer collected data with other agencies, partners, and do partners either send us volunteers or otherwise collaborate with the program?
I think that we really do. Me too.
Oh, Shannon, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I could take it. So we do share the volunteer collected data in the sense that like it's public data and we put it out on our website. We don't actively like send it, to other agents necessarily, but I think a lot of people, if they know about the program, they actually end up calling, our Equus staff, and they get a big like data download if they need it. Or sometimes people will contact us as well, and we'll send them, if it's not too big of a request, we'll send them a big chunk of data too, if they're doing research on something, or if it's like a lake association or whatnot. We're happy to share like a kind of a data dump to them. But otherwise, most of it's posted on our website for anyone to check out. And then for partnering, we kind of do in the sense that there's other citizen science water programs out there. The DNR, has a couple. And so we try to just keep in good contact with them and make sure that, they're sharing our opportunities, we're sharing their opportunities. So everybody just knows it exists, knows there's data out there, knows there's a volunteer opportunity. And there is also sort of a larger citizen science initiative within the state being run by Extension at the U of M, and so we participate in that as well, just so we're we're on people's radar, which is helpful.
Lee Gansky wants to know, are there some new developments with lake and stream temperature monitoring for volunteers?
Yes, so we are working on standardizing lake and stream temperature gathering. So we have finally settled on a program thermometer, and working on getting those out in phases to volunteers. So everyone will use the same type of thermometer. And then we've also made specific guidelines for how to take temperature readings for lake and stream volunteers. And yeah, so that's moving along.
One of the questions I have is, watching your presentation, is this a fairly unique program, or do other states have similar programs in place? Do you know?
Some states have similar programs, but I don't think maybe to the scale of this many volunteers, and providing all of the equipment as well. I feel like is kind of unique. Some other states that you have to like buy the equipment yourself, go through a lot of training, in-person training. But the fact that we provide all the equipment and then we do online training, that's on your own time. You don't have to make it out to an in-person training, take time out of your schedule to do that. It's fairly unique, yeah.
Aida has a great question, I think. Is there any data quality check on the data that you get? Or is there any kind of QA/QC that you do on the data?
Shannon, would you like to do this one?
Yeah. Yep, there definitely is. So we're getting data in a variety of ways now. Before we were getting it mostly in paper form, which we still are getting a lot in paper form. So when we're looking at a paper data sheet, we will look through it ourselves, So first we have the training. So we are going to assume that the training is going to make sure someone is actually, when they're out there, doing the measuring correctly. And then when we get their data sheet, we would look at, okay, does it make sense? You kind of can see the whole season right in front of you, and there's some general standard up and downs, throughout the season that make sense. Is somebody reporting like 5 feet, 5 feet, 5 feet, 25 feet, 5 feet, 5 feet, like you kind of look at me like, well, something's weird with the 25 foot. So then we call and say, what happened here? And a lot of times, they just had an error with writing or what have you. So we do that check before we enter the data. We are now receiving data via e-services. And we've built some like little parameters, on what we will accept, when they're entering it in. So it can't be too high. You can't get a SECI reading of 200 feet, or you can't get negative readings, things like that. And then what we try to do, we're still kind of working on this part of it a little bit because it's still kind of new to us, but we're going to have people help us use some Tableau viewers. And we so we can kind of visualize the data, and right now we visualized it on a sort of larger scale this past year, and we can visualize it on like a smaller scale. That's going to be a bit more work, I think. But so we can kind of see if there's some funny things going on that way as well. So we definitely have checks in there to make sure that that it's correct. And then also it's nice because people are using the data for assessments. And so every now and then we'll get a call and for someone being like, hey, I think something's weird. I think either something got into Equus and it was in meters and not feeds, or there's repetitive things happening. And so every now and then when there's an error that does get in, luckily someone seems to find it because the data is used and viewed. So that's nice. So then we can go back and change it as well.
David Miller asks something kind of interesting here. He says, what do you tell volunteers that want to collect even more data? Is there a way for a motivated individual to do more? What if they want to privately collect and pay for lab work for additional parameters and pollutants? Is that possible?
It's totally possible. They can do that if they want to. There's labs out there that will work with people that do it. R&B labs will do it. MBTL, A&W, I believe as well. So people can do that for sure. We do have, as part of the lake monitoring program, an advanced piece that we can support about 4 lakes a year on, where we provide the equipment and the training to do like actual water sampling and sending it to MDH for lab analysis. So there is a small portion. We can't really fund a lot of lakes that way. And if there's already sufficient data within the agency for that lake or stream for us to say, yes, it's already meeting state water quality standards, or no, we know it's impaired already, then we probably wouldn't fund that particular water body for any advanced monitoring. And it's actually only available for lakes. It's not available for streams. So there are options out there if people want to pay through labs for sure. And then there's a small option through our program.
Carrie wants to know regarding something more about temperature monitoring. Will all current volunteers be sent a thermometer, or will the volunteers need to reach out to the MPCA to get signed up for temperature monitoring?
Volunteers will be sent a thermometer, but we're doing it in phases. Still working to get bulk thermometers purchased, so they will be coming. I can't tell you exactly when they'll be arriving to. It'll be arriving to you. But it will be coming to current volunteers eventually. Won't need to reach out or anything.
Lee Gansky writes that the statewide air quality index has been a thing for a long time and in the news again recently. While it wouldn't be completely comparable, I see volunteer water monitoring potentially contributing to a statewide water quality index. What do you think about this?
That'd be cool. I think, I mean, it's kind of, the DNR has got all these tools. They've got like these mapping tools, these like the WAF mapping tool where like they take a bunch of data that they have, a bunch of data collected by the PCA and other things and put this, and they kind of do something similar. I feel like they rate the water bodies a bit on an index. So I think the DNR is kind of moving toward that, and I was happy to see that they did include volunteer data in their map. So that was exciting, and we promoted that map. And it'd be nice for people. But I recently just learned about it this past year. I think it's been around a bit longer than that, so it'd be great to like get the word out about it because it's a really cool map with a ton of information. And I think it's leading down toward that like water quality index kind of thing. So yeah. Oh, good. They provided a link to it because it's a nice map.
Oh,
Yeah,
great.
we'd be happy to be part of that kind of stuff. That's great.
It just seems like such an extraordinary way to extend the reach of our monitoring capability across state. And I mean, it's just so powerful, seems to me, to get that kind of data, quantity, if, you know, regardless of the QA/QC and so forth behind it. But Kevin kind of extends that a little bit. Do you know if there's any difference in the way that the clarity data collected by volunteers is treated compared to collections by other means when it's being used in the impairment assessment process? Which I think is a really a great question. It kind of picks up on maybe some of the, you know, maybe the quality of the data, or how you
Yes. I mean, so the volunteer data is used right alongside any other Clarity data collected by PCA staff or SWCD staff or things like that. That's not differentiated in any way. It's not flagged in any particular way within the database. So it's viewed as like high quality data that can be used. For lakes, Clarity readings are never used as a standalone to determine if a water body is impaired. It always has to be in conjunction with total phosphorus and chlorophyll A. So, so that's just sort of one component. So those three things together, total phosphorus, chlorophyll A, and clarity, are what helps, what determines if a lake is meeting state water quality standards. For streams, it is a little bit different. And I'm sort of getting like, since Lori Sobel retired, she was like the stream, you know, she knew everything about stream monitoring. And I'm trying to get myself a little bit better acquainted with how everything works with streams. But you can do an impairment with streams, I believe, just on clarity data alone. I don't think it happens very often. And if there's anybody else on this call that knows more about it than I do, please like chime in. But it doesn't happen very often, I don't think. And I think there has to be quite a bit of data there. But you can do that, I think.
Greg has an interesting comment here. He's seen the value of more than one volunteer on a lake to get more regular measurements throughout the year. If someone, for example, has problems getting out with boat problems and so forth, like he had last year. So kind of arguing for, yeah, signing up more than one volunteer on a lake might be a great idea. Just because you have one doesn't mean that they can always get out or that they're always there. Maybe they aren't gone for a while or something.
Yeah, we have a lot of volunteers who, if they know they'll be out or having boat problems, they take it upon themselves to find someone else on the lake or that lives by the stream that can go out and do the monitoring for them, which is really, really awesome that they take it upon themselves to do that. Or if we have volunteers that are retiring out of the program, a lot of times they'll find a replacement for themselves to take over that site from then on. And so we don't
I've
have
got to
that data
think
gap.
that, you know, from your point of view, this has to be a huge amount of work on your part to actually stay on top of and coordinate and get people everything they need when it comes down to over 1,000 volunteers to go out and monitor the lakes. Can you talk about the amount of work and time it takes you guys to do that?
Well, I'll say, I guess I'll start with the work is very seasonal, where we have different like work each season. So summer is kind of just making sure all the volunteers are good while they're out monitoring, working on more long-term projects or education and outreach projects. Fall is data entry time, which is real crazy time. Winter is, yeah, data entry and reports, analysis. Spring is our big recruitment season. So that's when we're doing marketing, outreach, media interviews, and then we're getting all of our new enrollments. So far, I think we've had at least over 100 now new enrollments for Lake and Streams this recruitment season so far. And technically recruitment season started March 20th. So we've been getting all the equipment out to them, getting them enrolled, signed up. And so that's kind of where we are now. And then, yeah, we have all of our appreciation events and communications for our volunteers that we work on. And then the coordination of enrollments and the volunteers themselves has been rolled into Tempo. So approving and reviewing volunteer applications that is now sent, their applications are sent in through e-services and then goes to Tempo now. So we have been doing a lot of Tempo work and e-services work too. So that takes quite a bit of time. I don't know if Shannon, you want to add anything?
No, I think that pretty much that covered it. Yeah, it is pretty seasonal, and you know, it can be some juggling of, you know, keeping trying to keep people on certain water bodies, but for the most part, people are just contacting us. A lot of lake volunteers wonderfully find someone to take over for them, so it's moving one thing to the next for somebody and having someone retire from the program and take over. And so that can be quite a bit of work in the spring, sort of transitioning that. But otherwise, yeah, Waverly covered it pretty well.
What is the best way that you guys have found to recruit new volunteers? What's the medium that seems to work the best?
It kind of depends year to year. Last year, we had awesome assistance from the communications department here at the PFCA, and we were featured. We had an article in over 40 different like small newspapers across the state, and we got a lot of volunteers from those newspaper and online articles, which was really cool. This year we got a lot of volunteers from the DNR actually shared a bulletin like newsletter of our program out with a very large listserv. And so we got a lot of volunteers from that share. And other typical things like social media, or we also do some advertisements in like Star Tribune or NPR. Nextdoor app, we've actually gotten a good amount of people from. So it's kind of all over the board. Yeah. Word of mouth too.
Kevin
Is probably the one.
does respond, the MPCA volunteer collected data, I think I have this right, Kevin, is used in the water quality component scoring in the WHAF, so that this massively influential volunteer collected data is working its way into that kind of assessment. So that's partial answer to that previous question. Aida asks, do the volunteers keep the Sechi disc from
Yes,
year to year?
volunteers keep their equipment. Bye, Shannon. Volunteers they keep the equipment year to year, unless they know, like, if they know that they can only do it for 1 year or 2 years, then we ask that they return the equipment to an MPCA office near them. And so I've been getting in some equipment from the other offices around the state, from folks who are retiring and don't have someone to replace them. And yeah, but you do keep it year to year. And then we'll send you your new data sheet for monitoring in the spring before monitoring season. So we send you a new data sheet every year, but you keep the equipment.
Lee Gansky writes that maybe you mentioned this already, but another side benefit of volunteer monitoring is getting people involved in precipitation monitoring. He references something I'm unfamiliar with, CocoRoz.
CocoRoz, yeah. Community Collaborative Rain Hail
Oh,
and
okay.
Snow. Yes, every stream monitoring kit that I send out, I include a CocoRoz brochure, and a lot of our monitors also sign up to monitor with CocoRoz. For CocoRoz, you do have to buy your own like rain gauge, so it's not a fully free program, but it is something else that you can do to volunteer and help out get data to the state climatology office.
Any more questions for Waverly on this? Well, I have learned a ton about this program. Thanks for the description of it. I would think one of the big pluses is that, engaging people like this, they become ambassadors for all of this to 10 or 12 or 20 other people that they meet. And so it's not just us running out there taking samples and, fighting the fight alone. You recruit a whole lot of people that are passionate about it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I get stories from volunteers all the time, and I have stories in our current yearbook that I just created that's going to be coming out soon and on the website soon, that you'll be able to read through, with stories and photos from volunteers of, I was walking to my stream site with my Seki tube in hand, and a bunch of people stopped me like, what is that thing? What are you doing? Um, and so they get to talk about the program, and they really love talking about the program and their volunteer work. People post in the Facebook group all the time of, I stopped and chatted with these kids and their parents, and they were so excited about what I was doing and how I was contributing data and science, and yeah, super awesome stuff like that. Thank you, Carrie.
Well, that's great. If nobody else has any other questions, we do have a few more minutes if people do. If not, we can thank Waverly and Shannon for the great presentation. On let's see, on June 8th, we have our next speaker. It's going to be, I believe it is Dan Miller from the Minnesota DNR. He's going to be talking about water appropriations in the state, and so that'll be another interesting talk to tune into. As a reminder, we do have our previous talks. Most of them are recorded and available if you want to look at them at a later date. And you can just contact us for the link to that, and we'll send it to you. We do send it out on the regular announcements that we have for our water issues talk, so it's always on that as well. So thanks again, everybody. Thanks, Waverly, and thanks, Shannon, and we'll hopefully see everybody in a couple of weeks. Bye-bye.